That lucky star I talk about is due. Honey, everything's coming up roses for me and for you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new Roundtable discussion of Jerry Lewis. We have Alan, who I previously interviewed for Slapstick of Another Kind. He was the second AD on that film. And then we have Jeff Abraham, who has an enormous record collection back there and Jerry Lewis collection. We all have collected memorabilia throughout the years. And Jeff, who's the author of The Show Won't Go On, he also did that with Bert
Burns,
yeah.
Who's also a big Jerry Lewis fan, who carries 2 Jerry Lewis tattoos on his arm. That's how big a fan he is.
Yeah, it's the caricature face, right?
Yeah, he's got the caricature, and then he's got the Hirschfeld one, the long one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not that dedicated.
Yeah, I'm not a tattoo person. Otherwise, maybe if I was a tattoo person, I would put it on myself. But as it is, I mean, I have a clock. I have a clock here.
Oh, Jerry!
I got my watch. I have my Jerry Lewis watch.
Oh. I have my Jerry watch given to me by Jerry Lewis.
Wow.
Not to brag.
That's a good one.
Was that on the set of Slapstick?
No, at the end of the film, he gave everybody the watch.
Wow. Of course.
Now,
gold watches or gold bracelets, or that was his normal.
It was the 7 jewels. A standard watch at the time was 17 jewels. It was 7.
Now to jump in, I had always heard that when Jerry was on the set, within 2 days, he knew everyone's name. Within 2 days. Is that correct, Adam? Alan?
Yes.
Better than I am.
Yes, Tom. Sorry, Jeff. Yes, he. As a matter of fact, he asked me for the list of everybody on the crew, and yes, within a day or two, he knew everybody. And if he was incorrect, he would say, "I'm sorry. Tell me your name again," and then he would know it. So yeah, he had an unbelievable memory. It's true.
One of the first pieces of memorabilia before we jump in, I just remembered I had gotten an acetate, I think of when he guest hosted the Tonight Show, doing the announcers test. Talk about a memory to do that. Not only to remember all those things. Is he named Jerry?
No, but go ahead.
Okay. But talk about a gift, and just to be, letter perfect to go through all 12 of those.
That was the show where Hugh Downs gives his social security number
right
on the air, and no one even thought of anything. Oh, that's fine. I guess it wasn't used for ID in those days because
it
was.
Well, Jeff, how did you become a fan?
I was talking to my kid brother today, who's I'm 59 and a half. I'll be 60 in March of next year, March 24th. So right near Jerry's birthday. My kid brother's 58. And he reminded me, we had a Jerry Lewis cinema in East Meadow, Long Island, which was near Levittown. And I do remember going to the theater and not so much seeing a Jerry Lewis movie, but I remember seeing the caricature, his picture on all the, walls decorated. The telethon was a yearly tradition. It was like March of the Wooden Soldiers. I mean, you had to know that. And he said one of the movies that played a lot at the time was Who's Minding the Store, and we really liked that. Putting trying to get the shoe on the fat woman. The typewriters in that movie. He said that movie was a popular movie at the time.
Yes.
So he was, the Jerry Lewis cartoon was always around, and I'm 8 years old, so he was always part of my zeitgeist as a kid.
ABC Saturday morning.
So I wasn't, that I was a big Marx Brothers fan. I loved Laurel and Hardy and the Stooges, but I think it came to when I got to be about 20 years old, when I really said, this is the guy. I had moved out to Los Angeles with my family after the winter of '78, which was one of the worst winters ever. And from 1982 on, I had encounters with Jerry Lewis. I went to the book signing at Walden's Books in LA for Jerry Lewis in person.
Oh.
In '84, he did a lecture for the Motion Picture Academy, the Jack Oakey Comedy Lecture. And I actually got to ask Jerry Lewis a question.
Do you remember what you asked?
So I go up to the microphone. It's taller than me, trying to reach up. And I go, Mr. Lewis, you say your character is a 9-year-old child. How long do you think you can keep on playing a 9-year-old? And without missing a beat, he goes, until they put the nails in the coffin. So that was my first encounter with JL. And then in '84, I got to go to a taping of the Jerry Lewis talk show.
Ooh.
And I think I'm in episode 2 for a half a second when they do the audience montage.
Right.
Okay.
So,
I'll have to look because I have that episode.
So in 1984, there are no cell phones. You always have to preface things like that. I'm waiting for my friends, and the woman says, oh, we have an extra ticket for the show before. Do you want to go in? I said, no, I'm waiting for my friends. They won't be able to find me, you know. That was the Frank Sinatra episode.
Oh, wow.
So I missed that. Instead, I believe I got William Shatner and Norm Crosby.
And Charlie Callis.
Yes. And I was very nattily dressed because in those days, people dressed up to a taping for the most part. I had a coat and tie. And at the end of the taping, I walked down front onto the stage and he autographed my copy of The Kid.
Ooh,
There you go.
that kid.
The book, yeah.
And I have, for whenever I sell it, I have my ticket.
Oh.
And that was April of 1984. And we all know Jerry's secretary does a better signature than him, but this is definitely JL's signature. Signed it right in front of me.
I think that one's pretty good. That one's a pretty good
signature. No, exactly. But his secretary is pretty, you know, as he got older, when he was doing these consignment signings and things like that, I mean, they're really kind of scary. In fact, 20 years later, he did a signing and he was only signing his first name.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I just picked up a Jerry Lewis autograph. It was on a mini handbill from I think one of the last performances, at least probably the last one I saw, was from 2014. It was on, I think it was March 15th. It may have been right the day before his birthday. And I had represented David Brenner. And David Brenner died that day. And my friend is driving and I'm on the phone. Doing interviews for the press and coordinating things. And then literally up until the minute we pulled in the parking lot, I was working. And then I went to see a Jerry Lewis show. And so I have a poster from that event. And he got he didn't get some great reviews. He was very surly with the crowd. If you remember, you know, people didn't always get a sense of humor. You know, that's when he would take questions from the audience and people would fawn over him. Mm-hmm. And he would go, Jerry, we love you. And he goes, drunken broad, you know, meet me in room 315. And just some of the people, just the critics and some people thought he was nasty, but he was doing his Milton Berle type of shtick. But he could get a little ornery, right, Kayley?
Yeah, like he said the drunken bit with when I asked him the question, like he was like, I think she was drunker than hell.
Right.
And like my mom who was there, she didn't know not that part, but like the part where he like asked if I was like a girl or you know, he couldn't. Right. I don't know if he could really see, first of all, or right. I think, but also he had used that same joke. Yeah. Marlena Dietrich.
Right.
And he had an affair with Marlena Dietrich. So, I mean, it's not a slight.
Right.
Wait, he had an affair with Marlena Dietrich? Is that what you just said?
According to him, she was on set of Artists and Models. And she's like, there's a picture of her like,
oh yeah,
with him and the big mouse outfit, and she's kind of like looking into his mouse pants. it's really it's really weird. But then, like, I mean, she was on the radio show with Martin and Lewis, so
She was
But-
way older than him.
she liked everybody. She was an all
When did he?
equally everybody
Yes.
wanted
women
to
and
sleep
men,
with everybody.
yes. Well, when did he say that he had an affair with her? In one of his books?
That was like the GQ magazine that he said he was with Marilyn, and then
But we know Marilyn ends up he wrote his book. He wasn't. So that was just
I mean, it could have been like him throwing something
A
out
lot.
there that wasn't, But
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it because I mean, she was with everybody, so I mean, it's not that hard of a stretch.
Right.
Yes.
But I had met somebody who worked in, I think it was maybe on a ladies' man. He said, you can tell whoever Jerry was kind of having a little affair or fling with, those extras had they got more close-ups than the other women on the set.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry has kind of taken it, has told these kind of stories. So we're not completely out of turn. And we all know that during Hell's a Poppin', he had was carrying on. But the one thing you asked me when I first became a fan, the one thing I should say, to this day, there is no one that makes me laugh out loud, louder than Jerry Lewis. As much as we want to say he could be surly, he could be this, the man is funny at the end of the day. And that's why I think Kayley, we were so fascinated with this person, I think. Why they're the Facebook people. I think he's just a hilarious individual. And when we talk about the movies in a bit, I mean, the man still makes me laugh, in those moments.
So Jeff, you said that you represented at one point David Brenner. What did he think of Jerry Lewis?
I think I don't remember him having any bad encounters. I remember when he was on the Jerry Lewis telethon with Jerry, and he made a wonderful remark. He said, if everyone who ever laughed at Jerry Lewis gave $1, we would wipe out muscular dystrophy. So he spoke very highly of him. In fact, there's a story, and it's celebrities' stories can sometimes be apocryphal, but he said when he did his first Tonight Show, which would have been, I believe, in 1971, which was done in New York, the Tonight Show with Johnny, Jerry was watching it, maybe on a closed circuit or something, and he came over in his pajamas and put a raincoat on and came out and said, this guy is the funniest guy who I've ever seen. America, you'll watch this comedian. Now, I don't know. I thought the Tonight Show was taped in advance. It might have been live at some point. I don't know.
It was the day of.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the story. He had nothing but wonderful things. And I made a list after Jerry passed away that I had seen or met Jerry about 24 times over a 25-year span. And they were real. I had nothing but wonderful encounters. I was very fortunate to, I promoted the documentary Method to the Madness, but Greg Barson did, and I was with Jerry.
What did you contribute to that?
Yeah. And by the mid 80s, I became before Facebook, I became known as a Jerry Lewis fanatic. So people would come to me. I was trading with friends. We would trade cassettes and trade VHSs and things of that nature. Yeah, I was kind of known as one of the Jerry Lewis geeks. I mean, not the leading authority, but I had enough of a collection. And someone said, "Oh, maybe you can help me." When Sean Levy was working on his book, The King of Comedy, I helped him with some research, and I wound up promoting that book. I don't think I ever told Jerry that, but it's still a very, very good book. I know Jerry and Sean did not have the greatest ending, but I think it's a pretty damn good book.
I think there's some like little tidbits of misinformation here and there. Just I don't think like he intentionally put it in there. It's just like little mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, but overall, right. I think it's the most definitive thing that we have, and
absolutely
the information Bible
Yeah.
If you don't have like articles like I do, you know, and other stuff, then I mean, hopefully one day I'll make another book that's the complete life, you know, because we don't have that, of course, from the 90s on.
Right. You know, but even though he, Jerry had, difficult and this and that, he said, when you take a look at the story of the making of the Bellboy, he said, you got to give Jerry credit. I mean, that is so true. Everything, writing the script in 3 weeks, editing and shooting while down into the Fountain Blue. He said, you got to give Jerry credit. The man was a workaholic, and he put it on the paper and he put it on the screen. So yeah, even though he could say Jerry Lewis's ex, Sean does give Jerry Lewis a lot of credit. I mean, I think it's a very well balanced book, as opposed to say what Arthur Marx did.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what? It's so funny because I read Arthur Marx's book, and I met Arthur Marx as well. I worked with him. He was a guest on the Today Show. It changed my whole perspective on him after reading that book. It kind of soured me on him because I was like shocked by all this stuff. It was especially when it came up, and that's actually the first time I'm trying to. It's going back in time, but I remember Tom Snyder when Jerry was on. I was there when he asked him about the book, and Jerry was like, "Who? What?" And Snyder was like, "You know what I'm talking about."
You're forgetting the next line. Tom goes again. Yeah, Jerry gives that kind of answer like, "Oh, what book is that?" Right. And then Tom persists, and Jerry says, "There's a book that says Hitler's a nice guy."
Oh yeah.
The old Hitler reference.
Because what was so unusual about the book? I remember saying at the time, it was one of the first books of a movie star, let's say, or a film star or a comedian that was so
unflattering.
Yeah, it was before the Sinatra book. It was
very good point.
It was really shocking at the time, and it was so. It was he had interviewed all these people who had stories, and
I met Arthur Marx too at a signing. I had him sign the book, and he said, he said, yeah. I said, Dean liked the book. Well, no wonder Dean liked it.
Yeah. But it's funny, his prediction.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kate.
The problem I have with it is like he has like conversations that happened supposedly between Dean and Jerry that he could not have known. Like, was he a fly on the wall? Like, how did he know? Like some of the stuff, like I believe, but like I think he's just taking liberties with conversations, like especially the one where Dean, after the breakup, where Dean is trying to get a hold of Jerry and he brings him into his office and they have this conversation.
Could it be that somebody else? Could it be that somebody else that he had interviewed was there and that's where he got the information from?
Well, I mean, Dean and Jerry were the only two people supposedly in the room at that time. So
I read the book when it came out, so I'm a little stale on exact detail.
Yeah, like they were like in the office, like Dean supposedly brought Jerry into the office and had the private conversation with him. He's like, why are you avoiding me? And like, and then Jerry promises not promises, but he just says he's not going to do it again. And then he does it. He avoids him on the lot and like keeps ducking him on the Paramount lot when he sees him.
But I had heard that story previously. Have you ever heard that story, Jeff?
Well, the story, yes, but like the conversation, what I'm talking about, like, and then also, I mean, there's a lot of like good parts there. Like I found the one part interesting where Betty Martin comes in from the back, backstage, and that's like where they had known that she had like read the correspondence between June Allison to Dean when they were having an affair, and like Betty had the letter in her hand, and like Dean and Jerry like ran off the stage for the hills when they saw her coming. So I thought that was really, really funny.
So I have a question actually for both of you. Because Jeff, you mentioned the method to his madness. There's a clip of their last performance in it.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the rest of that? I really wanted to see the entire clip.
I have 22 minutes of it.
You do?
Yeah, I thought I sent it to you. No? Okay.
No. But
I'll
who
send
was
it
the
to you then.
whole? I mean,
But
do
I
you
don't
have
have
the ending? Do you have the ending where they, how they ended?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
I've never seen that.
That that was from the Sands in March 1956, so that's not their final.
Oh, so but is there a recording of their final performance?
I don't know. I would assume Jerry had that, but I'm not sure.
Didn't they show a clip of that in the Method to His Madness?
It was just the Sands one.
Oh, okay.
So that was March 1956.
So maybe it doesn't exist, which would shock me because he kind of recorded everything.
Yeah, that one. I mean, if anything, he would have it. So maybe
there's no. He did record. He says he recorded everything. The story. The great Coppola footage. I've heard two different stories. One that he recorded it, and one that someone presented it to him and said, "Look what we found." Somebody. But it was definitely professionally recorded. It wasn't like somebody, put an iPhone in the back of the room and the camera changes lenses and it's professionally mounted. But
yeah,
but I just told the story that someone presented it to him, so I don't know whether he recorded it or how it came about. But that's an amazing document.
The Copacabana performance,
50,
January 1954.
54.
Oh, 54. Yeah, the 56 one, and that's what I was.
Yeah, so.
But if you really want to see almost their last performance, and I had this for years now with Facebook and YouTube and Kayley being so wonderful to share amazing stuff, and I really thank you for that. Is that Today Show clip? I would watch that like this is a Bruder film. I mean, you could literally watch the breakup of the Martin and Lewis right there. I mean, there's one scene where Dean is singing, Jerry's running the camera, he's egging him on, and Dean at one point just walks off like, I'm done. I've done this for 10 years.
And
I'm out of here.
You see Jerry's face just like drop. And it's just so awkward he's just like, okay, I'm gonna continue to dance on stage with all these dancers, but I'm like dying inside.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell, first of all, Dean, obviously did not want to get up at 7 whatever hour of the morning to be there. If he's going to get up, he's going to be on a golf course. And then to put up with this shenanigan. I mean, they broke up, 3 weeks later or something like that?
Yeah, so that was actually the day after, I believe, they decided to break up. Like they had announced it.
Announced it, right, yeah.
And their final performance after that was the 1956 telethon.
Right.
So, and that was like written about like that it was like shameful, basically, that they weren't looking at each other the whole entire show, basically, for 20 hours. They're just like totally, completely different performers, not connected at all. So, they got a lot of criticism for that.
But it's so great that we have this footage and records so we can see the brilliance. I mean, I think the complete Helsinki clip of Martin and Lewis on that with Bob Hope and Bing. I mean, you see the manic energy of these kids, Martin and Lewis, and then fast forward to the Today Show. We're very fortunate to see and have a record of the rise and fall of Martin Lewis. I mean, you just posted the audio of the Harvest Moon Ball event, and you look at the various Colgate clips, and you can see every facet of Martin and Lewis. It's great.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go into the films, what is your book, The Show Won't Go On, about? I mean, I know, but let's talk to other people about it.
Here's the book, written with Bert Kearns and myself. Bert is a tabloid, I don't want to say tabloid, investigative journalism. He had worked for Hard Copy and Current Affair. In fact, the great Jerry Lewis Current Affair interview, Bert was responsible for that.
Oh.
So he and I had worked together before. I had promoted a book he did called Tabloid Baby about the whole world of tabloid journalism. And about 18 years ago, I went to see a show with an Elvis impersonator.
Mhm.
And part of the show was a gentleman, you probably don't know his name, but you know his voice, Al Dvorin. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building. Thank you and good night.
Okay.
So Al was part of the show, did the announcement, and in the lobby afterwards, we were mulling about, talking, and he had worked for the Colonel before the Colonel had met Elvis, like in 1955.
Mhm.
And he said, someone said, Al, when are you going to write a book? You've done it all. And he said, yeah, I know. And this was Saturday night, 10 o'clock or so. Monday morning, I'm watching the local news. He was killed in a car accident Sunday morning, leaving the venue, heading back to Las Vegas from Palm Springs.
Wow.
If that doesn't take your breath away, and I was thinking, what about the number of performers who died going to a show, like Hank Williams, and Elvis died the day before he was supposed to start a tour, and John Entwistle, the Who, died in a hotel room. After
Dying on stage. Dick Shawn died on stage.
Right. And I knew about, somebody, one had died on stage, and Albert Brooks's father. So I came up with this great title, The Show Won't Go On. And I said, and that's all I wrote for about 12 years. And everybody go, yeah, whatever. And I told Bert, he goes, hey, I think you got something there. Let's do it. And he became my muse, and we worked on this book together. And it was actually Bert's research and tenacity that realized that there were more performers who had died on stage than we realized. So the people died going and leaving the show were eliminated. Now it's literally people who literally died on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're working on a sequel, which will be called I think I'm trying to remember the title. We had I can't remember the title. That was a very clever Hollywood Endings. About people who died on movie sets and things of this nature. And we didn't include stuntmen because that would have been very easy, So
Right.
These were all accidental deaths and things that nature.
So like Tyrone Power.
Right, Tyrone Power, people like that.
Would be included in the next book?
Right, exactly. And Red Fox, who was, rehearsing a scene for, I think, the royal family.
Mm-hmm. And John Ritter, would he be
John Ritter, he was rehearsing, and and then also we did a lot of research to get the facts right because there's so many urban legends. People always said, "Oh, Irene Ryan, she died." Well, no, she collapsed, and then 6 months later she died.
On Broadway.
What?
On Broadway, she collapsed.
Pippin, right? Correct. Yeah, came home to Los Angeles, California. Frank Sutton, some people said it was during a rehearsal, but we did include a couple of TV deaths. One of the most famous one that people have never seen before was J.I. Rodale, the health expert who died during the Dick Cavett show.
Oh, the famous story.
And it never aired. And a friend of mine works for Dick Cavett Productions, and he said to me, if you sell this book, I will allow you to watch it. So Bert and I became like the first people to ever see this episode. And we give a accurate account because there were so many urban legends connected with it. And even, Dick, from telling the story, things would get misconstrued, but by actually watching the episode. So that came out 2 years ago, November. And we're working on another book right now on the Rich Brothers.
Oh, wow.
Called The Rich Brothers, The Forgotten Clowns.
Right.
There's a direct correlation there. Of course, Jerry Lewis's, quote, illegitimate father in many ways was Harry Ritz. If you watch Jerry Lewis, and I didn't realize it, and I kind of backed into that Rich Brothers book, because all the comedians that I loved, Milton Berle, Sid Caesar, Danny Kaye, particularly Jerry Lewis, oddly enough, they were influenced by this one man, Harry Ritz. So it's really this brilliant comedian. And I got to actually interview Jerry in his home, and he couldn't have been any nicer. I walked into his home, and it's the same office where Jerry Seinfeld interviewed him for Comedians in Cars. And I walked in, I felt like Rupert Pupkin. He was wearing the baseball jersey and the shorts.
Yeah.
And he could have been, I spent like an hour and a half in his home, and Sam came in. I mean, he could not have been any nicer, and told some great stories.
Give us one. Give us the story. Let's hear it.
I'll give you a great one. So at the Shrine Auditorium in the early 50s, they did one of those big, benefits for the Christmas fund. And it was Martin Lewis and Abbott and Costello and Bob Hope and the Rich Brothers. So I asked Jerry, what was it like? You're on the same bill with the Rich Brothers. And he goes, I said, I just remember being in the wings and watching them. And when it was our time to go out on stage, I couldn't remember what the fuck we were supposed to do, And they shared, they would go to each other's opening nights. There's accounts where Sophie Tucker was performing and she got Jerry Lewis and the Rich Brothers to come up on stage and, ad lib. And then Agva said, you're not allowed to have people come out from the audience impromptu because the nightclub is paying you big money. So you can't just get people to come up and work for free. And Sophie Tucker was fined $100 for that. But
Jerry got fined quite a bit for performing for free.
But there's a great story, and I think Sean Levy, I first learned it when Danny Lewis, I should say, wait, let me get my facts right. Yes, before Rachel, Jerry's mother, married Danny Lewis, she had dated Jimmy Ritz.
Oh yeah.
And dumped him for Danny Lewis. So whenever the Rich Brothers would see Jerry, Jimmy would always say, I never touched her. I never laid a hand on her.
That's good.
So they had a wonderful relationship. And one time I was looking on eBay and I saw a Rich Brothers photo and it was whatever. It wasn't that much. Like, do I need another one? And I'm looking at it. And I looked at the signature for the 5th time before I'm going to bid or not. It was made out to Jerry, Patty, and Gary. I go, and then it hits me. I go, duh. I think I know where this photo came from. It was taken out of one of Jerry's scrapbooks. So yeah, they had a wonderful relationship. And I brought a couple of show and tell items.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
So oddly enough, there was a Jerry Lewis auction out of I think North Carolina. There was a very big Jerry Lewis collector. I think he was a former NBA coach who had passed away, and they were selling his collection. I happened to do a Google on something, and it came up. And it was like happening in a few days. It was literally under the radar. And I made a point of not telling anyone because I didn't want them to get in there. But the auction was on August 19th, 2017. Which was the day before Jerry Lewis died. And I think 2 days later, the prices would have been crazy. But I picked up certain things like a Martin Lewis ticket for one of their Colgate Comedy Hours.
Cool.
That's so good.
A Martin Lewis a matchbook cover.
Wow.
I picked up some Martin Lewis money clips. Oh, we'll do this one.
Is that like a 50-cent piece?
Yeah, it looks like like a silver dollar almost.
Right.
But the one thing I had never seen before was a Martin Lewis pocket watch.
Oh, wow.
Does it work?
You know what? I think it does. It does work.
Can you wind it?
Yeah, you wind it up,
and it explodes.
Explodes, right? Exactly. And then I also got an original in the case. This is just one of the cards, but Martin Lewis playing cards. One of them is a sealed pack of cards. There were 2 decks of cards in a case, in a little case, and these were again more of the souvenirs. It was very little Martin Lewis merchandise actually sold. We would see decals, the lighters, the cufflinks, and things of that nature were all giveaways. I know there was a Martin Lewis shirt, I believe, that was sold in the game. We've seen the game with the puppet show and all that.
Yeah, there was also advertisement for babushka scars that they did. And
Yeah.
I don't know what those look like, but they had it was really a funny advertisement for that one. So I would love to see it. I've never, seen it on eBay or anything.
And then the Martin Lewis tuck tape. And I think, what's funny, when Jerry Lewis did Letterman for the first time in 82, and it's hard to believe he was 56, and I'm older than Jerry Lewis now when he did that appearance. But if you remember that appearance, he took over the entire show, and he was brilliant. And Letterman came out, and he showed the Jerry Lewis record. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
He showed Jerry Just Sings.
Yeah, and then at the very end, he held out they showed the Martin Lewis tuck tape.
That's right.
And then Jerry Lewis, and his answer was, "Where did you find that?" And David said, "Oh, some guy said we have it." I said, "Come on right over." And Lewis was on the floor. I eventually found at the Jerry Lewis estate auction, I picked up Jerry Lewis's a plaque that was given to him on behalf of the Tuck Tape Corporation.
I like
Yeah.
it.
So, yes.
You remember in that appearance, he holds up he says to Letterman, "Do you want to see a picture of my pride and joy?" And
Yes.
well, that's the joke in King of Comedy.
Yeah.
Right. And Henny Youngman also used that joke a lot too. And then my big thing, which I have framed, which I can't see, but I bought at the first Jerry Lewis auction a pair of his trademark glasses.
Oh.
As you see as Jerry Langford. And like I said, when I met Jerry, that's the way he was dressed, wearing the glasses. And little did I know that in the subsequent two auctions, there would be about another 20 pairs of glasses. But I do have a wonderful pair of Jerry Lewis's glasses that came with a case that was written Fave on it.
So you're writing a book on Jerry?
No, I'm writing a book on the Rich brothers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Apparently there are a couple of Jerry Lewis books in the works. Rick Sapphire, who claims to be Jerry Lewis's manager.
Well, what was?
Well, he was never Jerry's manager. Ernie Glucksman was his manager, and then Joe Stabile was his manager.
Yeah, I knew Joe. No, but didn't he represent him in his later part of his life?
I think he may have gotten an offer, handled a personal appearance for Jerry here and there, but he was never his manager. There's a big difference between saying, "I will book you at a date," and this and that. In fact, Rick got fired and got in trouble because he was asking for money
for autographs,
for interviews and things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Kayley and I have a friend named Rick Lertzman who was writing a book on Jerry Lewis, and unfortunately Rick passed away. And
he was on Gilbert Gottfried, wasn't he?
Yeah, I had actually I can say this now, Kayley. Rick was a friend, and I helped set up that interview to promote his Rat Pack book. Yeah. He was a nice guy. He did like Jerry. I mean, he did, want to go into some of the dirt. But I will tell you, I introduced him to some of the people, a woman named Debbie Williams, who's on Facebook, who worked on the telethon. And that really turned his mind around on how caring Jerry was and how, what a great guy he was. So,
what year was that?
Manager.
Say again?
The stage manager. Oops, we're both talking. Go ahead, Caleb.
What year was that his mind was changed?
He talked to Debbie earlier this year.
The stage manager, Debbie, the stage manager, right?
Yeah. I think he didn't, yes, he said, yeah, I'll talk to Bill Richmond's widow and she'll have all these great stories about how Bill Richmond feels he got screwed and this and that. I said, there's so much more to the story. So I think he talked to people and realized, Jerry's not the bad guy. It's very easy to do that story. But unfortunately, Rick passed away. I don't know where the notes are and what shape that book it will be and if it will be finished.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because I know a lot of people like saw him as a friend, but then it was like how he presented himself online was, I mean, I'm assuming that was him because like, I don't know who else was running that page.
Right.
I mean, and he did say that it was him at some point.
Yeah, no, I don't think I agree with everything he did on the Life and Times of Hollywood page. I will say that. I'm not making him out to be a savior, but
yeah, like I just nothing but like put downs and like negative interactions on when I talk to him. And I was,
right.
I can deal with Jerry criticism, but because one of my friends has a lot of criticisms about Jerry, but it's like making up stuff is what I don't like. And like especially the story about the hooker that was like taking a dump on tables or something, and he was under it. I don't know, whatever that Hollywood story is that's been attributed to many people, including Danny Thomas. And I guess that's but like putting it on Jerry himself when that's a big rumor about lots of people.
Right, a rumor to begin with. Right. Yeah, no, like I said, I did not endorse everything he wrote in Life and Times in Hollywood, you know what I mean? And just like, but anyway, he was working on a book, so we'll see.
So what other comedians did you rep?
I was George Carlin's publicist for the last 11 years of George's life.
How was he?
He was great, actually. There was a wonderful event in Las Vegas that never got shown called the Legends or the Founders of Las Vegas. It was Shecky Green, Norm Crosby, Phyllis Diller, Jerry, and George Carlin.
I saw it somewhere.
Maybe somebody. I've seen photos.
They're all sitting on stools.
Yeah, exactly. The photos. Yeah. I don't know if the whole video's been posted. It may have. Now how things are. But I got to go backstage because I was with George, and I remember when Jerry walked in. The room lit up. He walked in with the lady, and and George, saw Martin and Lewis at the Paramount. He was a fan.
He's on a Tonight Show with Jerry.
Yeah, I think one of the early ones. Right. So George was born in 1937, so he was the right age to see Martin Lewis as a teenager. So he loved Jerry and Danny Kaye and all that stuff. He was
his era.
Yeah. So and I worked with Andrew Dice Clay and
Yeah, I went to high school with him.
Really?
Andrew Silverstein.
Yep, nice Jewish boy. And so a wide potpourri of comedians I've worked with and authors and things of that nature. Yeah.
Do you know I was a stage manager at CBS for 33 years. That's why when you mentioned Debbie,
okay.
We never worked together, but I know if she's a fellow stage manager.
Yeah, I mean, she just and I got to know Jerry just through hook or crook. I knew people. I got very lucky and friendly with a lot of the people in Jerry Lewis's orbit, from his road manager, a guy named Jeff Lowe, and going to the telethon a few times. So, I mean, when Jerry was at the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival, I got to sit in on an interview that he did. This was great. So Jerry does an interview, and the guy wants to take a photo, and already, Jerry's directing, no, you need to bounce the light. You can't do this. No, you should move this over here. It was just great, too. And then afterwards, I had to go to an antique show because I knew I would be meeting Jerry, and I got him to sign a Van Heusen shirt. And I go, Jerry, is that a Van Heusen shirt you're wearing? And he looks at me and he's like, what are you talking about, kid? And I show it to him, and he signed it. Like I said, all my encounters were great. He was, and now I'm very good friends with a woman named Judy Stabile, daughter of Joe Stabile. And niece of Dick Stabile. Mm-hmm. And now when I watch the Martin Lewis Colgates, Dick Stabile takes an extra bigger presence for me.
So Joe was representing him on Slapstick, and Joe was there every day, as well as Sam was there every day. Because we talked about Jerry having affairs, and I assume that's why Sam was on the set every day. Because she was there, and so was Joe. And Joe was just the nicest.
Yes. You're number 15. You're number 15. Everybody I mentioned the name Joe Stabile, they said he was the nicest guy I've ever met.
One more description, gentleman.
Yeah. And he ran, he was an executive producer on the telethon.
Yeah, but I think his title was, sort of given, I think.
No, he didn't, just like Jerry, Jerry didn't just show up, at 5:59 and said, "Let's do a telethon."
Of course. Oh, Jerry was totally involved.
No, and Joe was too. That was part of their organization, dealing with with the corporate and this and that. Yeah. So I've been very fortunate to be around that orbit for a man I like and laugh and can't stop talking about his movies, which we're going to do now, right, Kaylee?
Yes. So we're going to discuss the golden age of Jerry's solo movies, 1957 to 1965. Let's see if I can name them all. We have The Delicate Delinquent, Sad Sack, Rockabye Baby, The Geisha Boy, Don't Give Up the Ship, Cinderfella, The Bellboy, The Ladies' Man, The Errand Boy. Then we got It's Only Money, and Who's Minding the Store, The Nutty Professor, The Patsy, The Disorderly Orderly, Boeing Boeing, and The Family Jewels. That was a lot.
You missed two.
I missed two.
Don't give up the ship and Visit to a Small Planet.
Wait, I thought I said Don't Give Up the Ship.
Yeah, I think
I did miss Visit to the Small Planet.
Visit a Small Planet. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go back to school.
I'm
so sorry.
I looked at that list because when you told me we were going to chat about it, it's really interesting to me. I think Delicate Delinquent, his first movie, then The Geisha Boy, then The Bellboy. Those other movies kind of get lost. I can't say that I watch them that frequently. To me, Jerry, yes, 1958 jumps right into 1960. That is the start of The Idiot. The idiot magician, the idiot bellboy, the idiot, houseman at Cinderfella, and those other movies, The Sad Sack and Rockabye, he's really not the idiot.
Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like we're all going to discuss what our favorite ones are. Rockabye Baby is like my ultimate favorite.
Really?
One of my favorite movie. Well, actually, it is my favorite movie of all time.
Really?
Tied with Random Harvest and Waterloo Bridge, which are non-Jerry movies, of course. But it's the one that made me a fan. I loved it. I watched it so many times. Like, he just, I don't know. Like, I want to marry Clayton Poole. It's probably because he's just a caring character. He's not necessarily the idiot character. He's, a father. He's taking care of babies. He's singing.
Was the TV scene? Was that the one that really helped? The TV scene.
It's probably the funniest scene in the movie.
Oh, he's, the parts where he's singing Dormy, 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 like that's right. Beautiful. Like, he has such a gorgeous voice there. And, and his close-up shots in that film is like something like you don't even see normally in, like, for a actor. Like a male actor, you don't see that. You usually see it with actresses. Like that close-up that Frank Tashlin had of his face, and he turns around and is like, whoa, hey, he's a good-looking guy. And
the opening is pretty good too. Where he's singing, the opening is pretty good too.
Yeah. Like that whole
kind of cool.
That whole opening was very unique. Frank Tashlin had great openings, especially in his other films too, The Girl Can't Help It, and
Cinderfella, right?
Yeah.
Actually, that opening, along with, I actually love the opening to Don't 68, directed by Jerry.
Don't Raise the Bridge, Lower the River.
Yeah, just him walking around in England.
Right.
Yeah.
I know he did not like the film, but with the top hat and the cane, and him sort of whistling, I just love that opening with Rockabye. That's my two favorite openings.
You mentioned some of the dramatic stuff in Rockabye. The Geisha Boy, he's more of like a man idiot, not so much a boy idiot, because there are those touching moments. And my brother brought it up. He said when he tells the little boy, get away from me, go home. He says that brings a tear to this day when I watch that scene.
Well, he says, I don't love you anymore.
Right. Yeah, I cry. Still do.
No. Like that Geisha Boy is probably in the top 3 also. And then, of course, Nutty Professor, which, iconic. And then it's set also in this time capsule of the 60s, of the early 60s, swinging 60s, and
Right.
like
The
just
colors.
the colors, the the lingo, like just the unique storyline and plot twist, like the comedies, like that comedy just set a tone for like future comedies, like of how they could be. Because basically, I mean, nothing had ever been seen like that before in a comedy, or like such rich colors in a comedy like that.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Tashlin, of course, definitely influenced him, but like I think Jerry took it to another level in that film with like different. So like, who would think of like that type of blue or the purples
Right.
that he used in that film, and it was just so unique. And I don't even think like a color scheme like that has been used in any other movie since then. It was just
And
so weird.
they say the tracking scene where we first see Buddy Love, with the footsteps walking down the dark streets, was in Martin Scorsese borrowed that, and it's very similar to the tracking shot in is it Goodfellas when they're walking through the maze and all that kind of has a Jerry Lewis vibe.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, Scorsese also said, and actually when I saw King of New York, I said that's the shot similar to the Ladies' Man, and Scorsese later said that influenced him.
And I think Coppola said he was influenced by the giant doll, the set of the Ladies' Man, which he used in one of his movies.
Huh. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's some movie where they use a giant set. In the way, if there's a couple of sets where in the Ladies' Man it pulls back.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ladies' Man.
It's the Ladies' Man.
Yeah.
And the Errand Boy might be my two favorites.
Really, those two are my least two favorites.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Are we talking about least favorites in that era of time, or like
No, just of his films. I'm just talking about his films.
In comparison to the French films? And
No, I'm just talking about we're talking about that the period.
Oh, okay.
The Paramount period. That's what of those Paramount period. Those were my probably the least favorite too.
Those two also. I mean, they're kind of middle. I mean, I appreciate them for their greatness. Like, I think they're really great. But like, when it comes down to all of my favorites, and then those two get a little bit lower. I feel like maybe Ladies' Man more than the Bellboy, and then, well, actually, Errand Boy over the Bellboy for me, for some reason. But I think Who's Minding the Store is really underrated. That one is his funniest to me. It's like, especially when you get to the middle point of the film, and it's like gag after gag after gag. It's just like absolutely hilarious of stuff that's taking place inside the store. Like the sale, where they're having the sale and they all stampeding, and he's like,
But I was always taken by Jerry's verbal gymnastics, when he's in the scene in the Errand Boy, when he's trying to say, Mr. Wabanopoly, just that, or Bay Wozenthal. I looked at the Bay Wozenthal scene, which is done with Renee Taylor, of all people. She's the woman. That little scene is under 2 minutes, and the amount of laughs, him trying to say a name, and then when they leave, he misconstrues the name, and he does that crazy voice, and he does that also in the Errand Boy with Stanley Adams with the packages. He's trying to describe and I can't even, I can't do it justice by when Jerry's just trying to talk, if you remember the other scene after he goes into the deliver the script in the Errand Boy with the blue pages, he just can't get a word out. It's just those are the moments that just make me laugh out loud at Jerry.
Another one, like in The Delicate Delinquent, when he's trying to like get the information and like also the name of like the police officer or whoever's telling him stuff, like he cannot get anything right, and like you see somebody in like the line behind him like chuckle, start to
Right.
laugh.
Yawning. No, exactly. That absolutely. That first scene in The Delicate Delinquent, or the second scene, after he, opens the door and all the trash falls, and then he's in the lineup, and then Jerry go, I'm too tall for to die, and the thing, and then I don't want the electric chair. I mean that it's kind of like a throwback from the way Jerry would be phonetically crazy during the Martin and Lewis shows, and I mean, you look at the Jerry from the Bellboy and the Ladies' Man, and the physical running, and from trying to do dust of painting in the Ladies' Man, or combing his hair foolishly in the Ladies. I mean, that's really a direct line from what he was doing on Colgate.
Mm-hmm.
I showed my son when he was 7, The Delicate Delinquent, and he loved the scene where they wanted to test his intelligence, and he
Right.
had the
The
puzzle,
blocks.
the blocks with the triangle and the circle, and he just it must be a minute scene of him trying to get the square peg into the triangle hole. He just loved that. Of course, now he's going to be 30, but it's always nice to see somebody younger still laugh at it. So it's like saying, "Oh, this still works." But he wasn't a fan. I couldn't believe that he thought that wasn't directed well, and I thought it was like the lighting. There's some lighting sequences, and the fact it almost has a West Side Story quality to it. And I thought Don McGuire did such a good job, and meanwhile he did not think Don McGuire was a good director, and I thought it was one of his better looking movies, especially one of his better looking black and white movies.
And I thought Jerry is showcased very well with the little vignettes from the judo sequence, from putting on the ink and the fingerprints and trying to get the ink off the guy's shirt.
It's fun. And Don McGuire, we all know, went on to write Tootsie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And also when he sings By Myself, that's like a very powerful
I used to
moment.
cry that, Kayley.
Not only I love that scene so much. I use that song for an audition piece for a musical. Like I mean, they're also, he changed the lyrics, or they changed the lyrics. Somebody changed the lyrics for that, because that was also a song from the Bandwagon.
That's right, Fred Astaire sang it.
And that had totally different lyrics in some parts there too. But it was just a statement of how Jerry was feeling at the time after he broke up with Dean. And I don't believe that Dean, I don't buy the whole thing that he just didn't want to play a cop in a uniform or whatever, because he put on a cop's uniform before for pictures. There's a picture of him in a cop's uniform in one of their photo shoots. And so I think he was just, making excuses there. And
I think he saw the part as secondary, I mean,
it's not a very good part.
And Don McGuire didn't like him. Don McGuire thought that he couldn't act. So
well, that we proved wrong.
Yeah.
But Dean, when Jerry started to sing more and more in the movies, Dean had less and less to do, and so you can definitely see it when looking at the script. Dean's going to go, "Where's my part? Where's my song?" And
I think Jerry was supposed to direct that film initially, and that could be why he was a little, thought it wasn't directed well.
Right.
So,
what do you guys know about? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, what were you gonna say? No, it's fine.
I was gonna say, what do you guys know about the Bogdanovich project? Was it 81 with Frank Sinatra and Dean and Jerry that was supposed to be shooting in Vegas?
And Jimmy Stewart and Frank Sinatra, and then it might have had Sophia Loren in it, but like it never was written. Yeah, like they never got to write the screenplay for it. It was from a book, and Bogdanovich and the author, I forget his name, like didn't write the screenplay, and they eventually got, and it was also like producers that kind of bungled it up.
Oh,
So
that would have
I
been
just,
interesting to see.
But the trades are always mentioned, as you know, Kaylee, from doing all your research, that people say, oh, this person is attached to this project and they really aren't, and this and that. And sometimes someone will do the movie and then all of a sudden the director is no longer available. Then that actor now drops out, or vice versa. They asked, Larry King asked like Al Pacino, he said, or Richard Gere, whoever, he said, you passed on so-and-so project. And he said, when I had it, it had a different director. It had a different writer. The script wasn't good, So it's not like John Travolta passed on, Gigolo. You know what I mean? It's like there are so many factors in that, And, King of Comedy, they suppose it wasn't Johnny Carson the first choice. But that might have been like, all right, we offered it to Johnny on Monday and he passed on Tuesday. It really wasn't like Johnny was attached to it. You know what I mean? Or they were thinking about Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
I thought the story goes that they also offered it to Dean Martin, who turned it down. Then they thought of Dean, and then they said, oh, Jerry Lewis. That's what I had heard.
Right.
I think Johnny could have done it.
Yeah, he could, but that was who he was. So it was it was no challenge. Carson used to say he never wanted to do a movie because it was too much waiting, and he's used to doing a show where he gets instant gratification and instant reaction versus you shoot for 3 months, you wait another year, and it comes out afterwards. So he always said so. He never really did any movies.
And then Jerry said about the King of Comedy, he said, "Oh, now I get praise from the critics. Where were you before when I was acting like a 9-year-old?" He goes, "This was easy, because I think it was Sean Levy who said, they used to say Buddy Love is Dean Martin. I think Sean was the first person to say, no, Buddy Love is Jerry Lewis, the other side of Jerry. Right. I mean, if you watch the Jerry Lewis 63 talk show, there's shades of Jerry Langford there, or when Jerry hosted the Tonight Show, so it wasn't a stretch.
So, Kayley, I know you were way too young, but did you watch the 71 Tonight shows with Jerry Lewis? Because you're a little bit slightly younger than me. I remember trying to say,
I don't remember that.
I do remember that. I remember as I talked to Kayley, I remember he had John Cassavetes on, the director, and on the show he said they were going to make a film together on the show. I remember one day they announced who's coming up at the end of the show. One day they announced Paul Newman. And that's one of the things, Kayley, I've always asked her. I want to see Jerry Lewis interview Paul Newman. One of those things.
The only episodes that I've put out there from the 70s.
And
there's like one from 70. There's the one with the watermarks. So I rescued it from the vaults because you had to pay for, to get a certain amount of time. And so there's a 73 one, a 72, I think, and I know I did the 84 one at some point. And then of course there's the one with Bill Cosby hosting, which was weird.
These when he used to host for.
But but those ones aren't ones he hosted. They don't have those available. They just have what the outline of what those shows were, but they don't have the actual footage.
Do they exist? Do you know if they exist?
They
don't.
I don't know if they're in the vault from
the salt mine in Kansas City or something like that.
There's also one that I saw recently that was I think it was 70. That was from someone's VHS tape where Jerry hosted.
And who was the guest?
I don't know. There was just, I don't think we're going to see it from the Johnny Carson people.
Too bad.
Tonight shows pre-1972 are just by themselves are a rarity. Just things were unkept. Very often, if the host or the guest wanted a show, like Hugh Hefner, kept one of everything, or Johnny Mercer and things like that. But it's, obviously, I think when they had the Ed Ames, I think someone was smart enough to realize, hey, that's a pretty good show. We shouldn't throw this away. But, I think when Johnny was getting ready to do the 10th anniversary and was looking for clips, he realized how few were not kept. You got to remember VHS videotape was more expensive than kinescopes back then. And it had no
2-inch tapes. They
right.
were huge.
Right.
So the story goes that one NBC executive said, erase them, get rid of them, and take over.
We did have reruns with Lucy, but they figured a talk show is going to be topical. Why would someone want to watch a guest? And it's the same thing with the Dick Cavett show. Unless you want to pay for it, you can do it. And Dick Cavett had to buy the shows. I think someone I had read, and hopefully I'm not wrong, they said, yes, you can own the shows, but you own the shows, but we own the physical tape. Now, if you want to buy the physical tape, it's going to cost you. So now he's going to go back and buy all the tapes. And he says, I'm not going to buy 1,000 of them. I'll pick the best 400. You know what I mean?
One of the things I know that Jerry liked to do was he always asked for a copy. So I'm just curious if he has the Tonight Shows.
We've never seen the list that was published by the Library of Congress, what Jerry gave. You know what I mean?
It's never been published, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I kind of looked at certain stuff online and typed it into the search box of stuff at the LOC, but I don't think it was a complete list, honestly. Because it seemed
now these 63 shows exist, but they've never been made available. I mean, I know when they were working on the DVD for Mad World on the Blu-ray Criterion, called me because I knew someone in the Lewis camp. They wanted to get part of the cast of Mad World appeared on the 63 Lewis show, and Lewis's camp, one of his sons or Jerry, I believe, was still around at the time. Yes. They said no. They said, "Oh, we're saving this."
So it's still saving it. It's still never been released.
Right.
But I believe the Museum of Broadcast, because it's one of those things I always wanted to see. The Museum of Broadcasting has it, so you could watch it there in New York City.
I think the Paley Center might have it too. Going back to the films briefly.
Oh yeah. One thing I want to say about the films that kind of had a memory. Jerry had an HBO special in the early days of HBO. I think it was a lecture at USC. And what I remember vaguely about that, he was showing some film packages. And the movies weren't always readily available, back then. If you missed it on the Channel 9 movie, maybe a year before you see it again. Mm-hmm. But it was the first time I had seen the Patsy montage of the vases. Mm-hmm. And I saw that and I said, that's just brilliant. That's just funny. And again, the crazy voice, singing, the singing lesson with Hans Kadri is great.
Cops are after you. You better watch it.
The movie I think that I love too, way up there, is Cinderella, which has so many brilliant moments.
Yeah, that's the first one I watched, and as a teenager, and then it took me because the movies just didn't come on TV in the late 90s or in early 2000s.
Well, not the late 90s, but in my time they came on a lot.
Yeah, and I'll go back to the frenetic voice, with Fella, the steak was fine, prime, good, fine, and just the subtleties of running back and forth to get the salt, and just the little gag of reading the inscribed ring, there's so many great moments in that movie, and
this fella is finally
coming. I remember, I guess
The Gentleman's Game.
Yeah, Tashlin couldn't get him to come film that scene in the basement, that powerful scene where, the dramatic scene. And he couldn't get him down there forever to film it because he didn't like filming serious scenes, apparently. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that was also did that whole walk in the wide shot with the nice lighting. Lighting is really good. It's a really nice sequence.
I think the staircase sequence is just brilliant. Is it funny? Yeah, it's funny, but I just think it's just great filmmaking. Which And if you watch the Joker, he's doing a little bit of the
Exactly.
the staircase, exactly, which is a remake of the King of Comedy. So scary.
Yeah.
No, but which I think is Jerry's little homage to Harry Ritz, who would do all the crazy walks. You know, a lot of the comedians would do that hand on the hip kind of thing, and that little slightly effeminate kind of thing. And no, that, I mean, there's so many brilliant moments in that movie. And I liked, again, he was maturing. Those sequences with Anna Marie Alberghetti. No, am I right on that?
Anna Marie Alberghetti.
Yeah, she was a princess, right?
Oh,
I didn't know. I thought it was or wait, did I?
No, this is the original one sheet. I had him at it and noticed, because first time I met him,
Signed
1981 to me.
I think last time I didn't see the actual full.
Yeah. No, it's a one sheet that I got him added, and I have it framed.
Wow.
So there you go.
When I interviewed Jerry at his home for the Ritz Brothers book, I asked him, how come we don't see My Friend Irma Goes West?
That's so funny. I asked him the same question. I asked him in 1981 though, but go ahead. What was his answer?
I don't remember the answer, but I remember that was a movie that was not readily available.
Yeah, exactly right.
I actually just saw it on Pluto TV last night. It was on.
Without commercials on Pluto, or they run commercials?
Sometimes they have commercials, but then if you do the on demand, they don't do commercials.
Gotcha. You know, speaking of
his answer, I'll give you the answer.
Go ahead.
The answer to me was that he didn't own it. Hal Wallace did, and he basically had nothing to do with it. Was his answer. Because I said I saw all your movies. That's the one I have never seen because it's never shown.
You know, speaking of streaming, you know, they were running on shoutfactory.com and Tubi those TV specials from around the same time, from 57 to 60. That to me is classic Jerry Lewis.
They're missing the Sammy Davis Jr. episode from 1957. I think it was. Okay. 58.
It's funny. I feel they're painful to watch.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's almost like it's too much all him. It's just like
he
monopolizes the whole hour, and it's sort of like, oh my God! It reminds me of a line where D. Martin said to him, "It's like you got the job already." It's like there's no lower level. It all plays at 100.
Well, that's what they said when he, started to host, having his own talk show. It's one thing when you come in and be crazy on the Tonight Show for a week, but do you want this for 13 weeks?
You ever, the famous Jack Carter with him? I mean, you're talking about the two of them. It's just like, it's all over the place, but like it's almost like you watch it like this. Because it's like crazy. Speaking of his talk show, I didn't realize that the 5 that were aired were basically pilots.
Right, and the 1 week pilot for Metro Media.
Yeah. And then the ratings were not good, and that's why it didn't go. And at Carson, I remember this, Carson, the Tonight Show, would turn to Ed McMahon during his monologue, would say, you know, Ed, you gotta have friends. Because friends are the most important thing. He was making fun of Jerry Lewis. Yeah. Because that was like Jerry was doing that.
Well, Charlie Callis was a little too much on that.
Terrible.
But the Frank Sinatra is a great episode. That is a classic. That is a great TV. The two of them.
Because you know what? The story is always that Frank Sinatra is not funny. Frank Sinatra was funny on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's funny. If he wasn't funny, he wouldn't have been funny with the Rat Pack.
No, he was funny. Someone said, because a friend of mine played Joey Bishop in the Rat Pack movie, the one with Ray Liotta. And the line about the Rat Pack is, Sammy wanted to be Frank, and Frank wanted to be Dean.
And Dean wanted to be Jerry sometimes because he wanted the comedy. He
wanted to do comedy. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you guys got to. I just sent this to somebody. There's a clip of the Dean Martin show with Dean Martin, Lee J. Cobb,
right,
Charles Nelson Riley, Jackie Vernon, who was a comedian,
right,
and I forget. And Buddy Epson, and they're all sort of dancing. It's the strangest lineup, and they're all dancing. And Dean's like, I can't dance. Watch that clip because you just type in those names, right. And then Dean does this dance. It's literally Jerry's dance. He's doing the uncoordinated dance, And I just saw it actually 2 days ago, and I was like, oh my God, he's doing Jerry. I thought that was like
missed him. He a little bit. But like literally there's a quote where he was like saying that he got something from comedy that he didn't get from singing. And that was like in the early, that was definitely in the 50s. He said that. So I was like, he just wanted to be Jerry all along. Like that's the problem. And Jerry wouldn't let, like, you know.
And I think Jerry wanted to be Dean at times too. He wanted to be the king of cool.
Right? I mean, often, the king of cool thing bothers me so much because I'm like, I can show you so many pictures of Dean making so many goofy faces or being in so many different weird, funny, goofy outfits that like will blow you people's minds. Like that just are like, he was just so sophisticated and so cool, and you know, and like he wouldn't be doing, like, if you watch the Dean Martin show, like he's not really, I mean, he's acting drunk and he's like goofy most of the time. He really is just goofy most of the time. And
he was an entertainer.
Yeah.
Just like Jerry.
Yeah. You know, but you know, it's funny when you see you think of Martin Lewis, you know, and Dean being the king of cool and Jerry being the little guy. You know, I love that. You know, I have a great photo of Martin Lewis at some premiere, and they're literally the same height. You know, it's so, as Jerry always said, I worked in a crouch. I shaved the heels, but yeah, I love the photo. They're the same height. If anything, Jerry might be a quarter of an inch taller.
Yeah.
Right. So, Kayley, one of the movies you mentioned was "Don't Give Up the Ship," which I had the insert poster for it. So I was doing a show, and Dina Merrill, who was married to the actor Cliff Robertson, was a guest. And so I had happened to have just seen it. It was 59, right? 59. So, and she was on the show.
Right.
And I said to her, oh, you know, don't give up the ship. And she was like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. So I was 2 when the movie came out. She thought I was like part of the crew members of the movie.
Oh my God. Like, not that old, but okay.
I do remember that movie showing up frequently as a youngster quite a bit. I do remember John Paul Steckler, The Seventh.
I love that movie. I think
I do like it.
Well, the ending is great. I think it's one of his better endings.
Like, and Visit to a Small Planet, like it gives him a chance to be like an alien, and he does very well as the alien. I know Gore Vidal like had a fit because he hated that, you know.
But the drum sequence in the nightclub, I always liked that.
Yeah, and then like some of his
Slinking Dancer and Black Leotard.
Yeah, the whole dance sequence is cool. Really good, and like just some of the visual stuff for that time, you know,
right.
The spaceship, and then like floating in the air, and you know, some of that was definitely more I mean, obviously it's sci-fi, but like visual effects, like some of the best visual effects in his films. Because those films are not shown. I mean, if you're doing a Jerry Lewis retrospective, you know, those Norman Taylor and some of those Tashler films aren't shown as often, you know, when they do the marathons. And I too will say I don't know them as well. You know, really, if we wanted to do something in depth about Rockabye or Sad Sack, I really would need to watch them. Where the other ones I've seen so many times, I can tell you every scene out of the Patsy and the Errand Boy and Ladies Man, you know.
I bet did you see Boeing Boeing? Because as a kid, Boeing used to be shown a lot on TV.
Yeah, and I do like it. More and more, I do like the farce of it. Yes, the running in and out and things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of Jerry fans don't like that one for some reason, and I know Jerry didn't like it.
He's not doing shticky. He's almost a Dean Martin role. Like I thought that was a perfect Martin Lewis movie.
We're doing this Boeing Boeing as one of the films for the Total Film Critic, but like Dean was actually supposed to be the Tony character when Hal Wallace first bought that. So, you know, I always thought it would be a good Dean and Jerry movie.
Now, is that really the start of the end of the Tony Curtis Jerry Lewis relationship? Is that where it started to sour? Because he told stories.
No, it soured in 53 or
Wow.
well, 54. Start of 54, I mean end of 53. So somewhere in between there, they stopped being friends, and there's a lot of rumors about why that is.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. But they did though. But they wound up doing Boeing all those years later though. They reunited.
Yeah. And because kind of like, you know, they made him do that one. I think he did that one just because he wanted to
Finish
do
his
the
contract.
Family Jewels and finish that, and they weren't going to let him direct anymore, you know, and so he was kind of obligated to do Boeing Boeing. And, you know, Jerry and Tony totally did not get along on the set. You know, they both acted like divas. You know, Tony just like dropping pieces of clothing and expecting people to pick it up. And
Tony Curtis in his biography, talks about this, that Jerry would do scenes by stepping on his shoes, and he would not acknowledge it, even though it really hurt a lot. He would just keep on plowing on, and he was not happy about that.
yeah, and also dumping cigarettes ashes on it.
There was a show called Movie. It was like a game show about movie trivia.
The movie, right?
The movie show, was it called?
The movie game or the movie show,
Something
right?
like that.
Army Archer.
And Jerry was a guest on it.
Okay.
I think he was on with Lily Tomlin.
Right.
And
Is that the episode? I might have like posted.
I haven't seen it since. I saw it when it originally aired. And who came out as a surprise for some reason was Tony Curtis.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Maybe this was different then, because he definitely.
Maybe you should try to get this one. And
yeah.
They were both kind of, you know, they acknowledged each other, but it was kind of cold. I do remember that.
You know, if we're talking about this great period, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Jerry Lewis stock company of Milton Frome, Del Moore, Kathleen Freeman, Buddy Lester. And I got to meet Kathleen Freeman, you know, and I got to meet the lady who was the hey lady, you know, that was a great thing. And
what did she say about Jerry?
you know, she had nothing but wonderful things to say about Jerry, and said what, you know, perfectionist he was, and, you know, allowed her to take, you know, to do her part, and, you know, allowed her to get the laughs, you know. And Del Moore, I mean, if there's nothing better than that scene of him, you know, doing the Shakespeare scene in Nutty Professor, you know, right? Is that not one of the funniest scenes?
Yeah. And he was supposed to be played by John Williams. And I mean, John Williams can be like, he was also in Visit to a Small Planet.
Right.
With Jerry, and he did not like Jerry at all. So like, I don't think, I mean, he had like a very dry humor, if anything, like that came across in his films. But like, I see Del Moore a lot better.
Yeah.
Del Moore was also the announcer on the 63 show for a while, and he sat on the couch, and then if you see the later shows, he's gone. So I'm curious.
True.
And then when Jerry had a radio station, Del Moore had a radio show.
Oh.
Yes.
And you can hear just a couple of the excerpts floating out there. Yeah.
The Dream
Yeah.
One. That's a beaut. Like, his voice is so smooth. Like, he could be very articulate when he wanted to be, and very, you know, his voice sounded really good.
Are you guys aware that Kathleen Freeman appeared in a Martin Lewis movie before she did?
I think she in one. I think she in one of them.
She's
Yeah.
in two of them. She's in two of
There
them.
you go. Look at Kaylee.
The three-way.
This young kid making us
Circus.
look like fool.
She
Which one's
appeared,
that?
Artists and
Circus.
Models.
Artists and Models.
And I remember, yeah, she's in Three Ring Circus, like very briefly.
A small role. Yeah. I assume that's how he knew who she was.
Yeah.
Those two films.
Now it has been said that Orson Welles said the hat sequence in the Ladies' Man is one of the funniest sequences ever with Buddy Lester. Do we know where and when? Is that on record? Do we have that in print or some interview, Kaylee, that Orson Welles saying that?
I
heard that.
I would have to look
Have you
at.
heard that, Kaylee?
I know he did interview on, I think it was Dick Cavett or somewhere else.
Rather dim gone.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
do
heard
know
Jerry
that
Lewis?
Orson Welles didn't like Jerry as a solo.
Though you know, Orson Welles did the voiceover in Slapstick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, though he never met. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
interaction. It was after a shot. But go ahead. Sorry.
That's such a random. I mean, I guess wasn't he just doing stuff for money at that point?
Yes.
Yeah.
To try to get financing for him to do more films.
He also did, I think, the narration too for Spaceballs. He did that like in an hour. You know, they paid him for like the day. He did it like in an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I never heard that Orson Welles said that. Where'd you read that?
I've always heard it. Yeah, it's like, oh, Orson Welles always said that's the funniest sequence ever, and it is a great sequence.
Yeah, I sort of think more like what Kayley said, that I don't think he was not what in the Dick Cavett interview with Orson Welles, when Cavett says, I wrote for Jerry Lewis, and he says, does that ring a bell? And he says, a rather dim gong. At the time, Jerry was hosting The Tonight Show, because I was so pissed off when I saw that. And I, again, saw it when it aired. When Jerry was hosting The Tonight Show, Myra Breckinridge came out.
Right.
Which was an X-rated movie. And he was, I guess the word aghast would fit. And he was so against it and was constantly talking about G-rated movies,
right,
G-rated films, and he was on a crusade at the time, and that was 5 days a week when he was hosting, talking about it.
This is also the time of the Jerry Lewis cinemas.
Yeah.
Yes,
so right.
Yes. But he was really doing it, talking about it a lot, and I think that rubbed Orson Welles the wrong way.
Mm.
Oh, I know, like when he had Bob Hope as the guest, they were talking about Myra Breckinridge, and they were just like appalled, of course. I mean,
yeah.
Meanwhile, it's graphic. It's a graphic film, so I mean,
I was wanting to see.
There's a graphic scene in there for sure.
Well, because he kept on talking about it, it made me want to see it, but I was too young.
It's just a weird movie.
It was a movie to see Mae West again after 30 or 40 years. Mae West as Raquel Welch? No, Raquel Welch is Rex Reed, sorry.
Rex Reed. I mean, I know he did the roast.
Jerry's friend.
But then Rex Reed said something later on. I think it was about Frank Sinatra. He criticized him when he came back from retirement, I think, and that's
Jerry took him to,
wrote him a letter and blasted Rex Reed after that. So,
there was one point where he actually liked Rex Reed. I think Rex Reed was on one of those Tonight shows where he hosted. He would refer to him. That was also the time he was against the critics.
Right.
They're whores. He was just doing this whole thing, which is a no-win situation. And I think one of the critics that he said that he liked would be Rex Reed. And we know Pauline Kael.
Yeah.
Actually was surprised, but.
There's also, not Visit to a Small Planet. It's Only Money. I just found out he didn't like that film.
I know, and that was never shown.
Yeah.
In my day.
It's never shown anywhere, really. And I'm glad that it came out on DVD finally instead of, having.
I think it's an odd film that is sandwiched in between The Errand Boy and The Nutty Professor.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good. It's good. It holds up. It's funny.
And the vacuum sequence where he's running away from the vacuum that's shredding everything is really funny. And just the whole detective, the whole,
it has a film noir quality to it.
Noir quality,
yeah.
Yes.
And that's where our Francine York is in the movie, right? Isn't that where she got her big break? And
not Joan Blackman.
Joan O'Brien? No.
Oh, Joan O'Brien, yeah.
Joan O'Brien, right?
But the one that's not the Day the Clown Cried author. This is Joan O'Brien, the actress.
Right.
She really had a great experience with Jerry on that film. I think she was going through some family issues at that time, and Jerry was just very supportive to her, she said.
And Francine too, who spoke very highly of Jerry.
Marianne Mobley, I met her also, and she, read Three on the Couch, was really enthusiastic about him.
I like that movie. I remember seeing that Columbia one and the Big Mouth being fairly popular on TV.
Well, here's something about. I saw both of those in a movie theater.
Wow. I mean,
I was 57. I was 10, but I saw it in a movie theater. And that was the one where my father didn't want to go, and I dragged him, and he laughed, and I said, "See."
I mean, I was lucky enough to see it like The Nutty Professor came out. Well, actually, there was one there's a cinema here, and I saw like the 70 millimeter print.
Wow. Oh, how nice.
So that was good. And I got to see something that was not shown in the DVD version. Like it was like something that's written on the other side of the page. It's in a schoolroom scene. I have to like look over what exact scene again, but there's like a Jerry caricature, and there's also something that says JFK.
Oh, the briefcase.
Yeah,
Professor Kelp's briefcase.
Yeah, and like the caricature was on the other side of the page or something. I was like, oh. And you couldn't see it because of like the print quality, and like it was like washed out or something from, I don't know how that happened.
Was it beautiful to see it in 70 millimeter, Kayley?
Yeah, you were able to see it and see different things in the 70 millimeter quality.
How was the audience's reaction to it?
I think there was a lot of people there for that one. I do know.
Did they laugh?
I saw it again later, but it was not the 70 millimeter. It was like after he had died, and there was King of Comedy and the Nutty Professor shown. And as a retrospective at Harkins Theaters, which is the big movie theater chain, I was surprised that they did it. And it was the week after. And, a lot of people were there for that, actually. And
but I mean, do they react? Do they laugh?
Yeah,
that's good. That's good.
And I think there was the variety of different ages there, actually. So that was good to see. When I saw Max Rose, though, it was like two people.
Me too. There was in New York City. I saw it. There was like 10 of us there. It was kind of sad.
I saw it at the packed house, and Jerry Lewis was there.
Oh, that's cool. Where was this? In Vegas?
Santa Monica, the Arrow Theater.
Okay.
He was there, and I saw the Nutty Professor a few times, both when Jerry was there for Q&A. Once at the Directors Guild, and it wasn't a great print. And Jerry even said, what's with the print? You only had 6 months to prepare for this evening.
You know what? Excellent point.
But the one movie I did see, they did, I don't remember what, it might have been a tribute to Technicolor or VistaVision or something, but I saw Artists and Models at the Motion Picture Academy, which is one of the best theaters in the entire country. And that was gorgeous. And to see a Martin Lewis movie with an audience on a big screen and talk about colors, to see Artists and Models, that was gorgeous.
Has anyone seen Money from Home in 3D? I would like to see that.
Yeah, I did. The Egyptian had it. Ron Fermanak had it as part of a 3D film festival. I did see that.
How was that?
It was pretty cool. I mean, it's not a lot of 3D sequences in the movie.
Oh, I thought the whole thing was in 3D.
No, but I mean, in terms of, the hands and, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a lot of that.
Translates to 3D.
Yeah, I saw a Three Stooges short once in 3D,
right,
where they actually they poke the camera. They do this.
Right.
Like, woo! So that was pretty funny. The worst Jerry Lewis experience I ever had in a movie theater was seeing in 1970 when I was 13, was seeing Which Way to the Front in a movie theater because nobody laughed, including me. It was.
Yeah, I like that. I will say that the first 20 minutes are kind of, it kind of drags, but once you get into overseas and he's like, impersonating a German official, a Nazi official, like it gets really funny. And like the scene, what's her name? I forgot her name. She's
Hey,
supposed.
Ballard.
Yes, yes, and
Did I
she's
tell you
trying to
about Kate
commit
Ballard?
suicide.
Kate Ballard said I didn't get paid for that. That he kept sending her flowers. That she didn't get paid for that. But go ahead. Sorry.
Like that, like she's trying to commit suicide, and he's trying
She's
to like
all over
prevent,
him.
like she keeps trying different ways, which I mean ended up being in cracking up later, or smorgasbord cracking up, but like she's trying to put pills down her throat or
Right.
hang herself or like some sword thing, and then he's like, you're trying to kill yourself, like one life, or he's like he said something about making a contribution to like saving her life or something, and like I guess he was saying that he was going to have sex with her or something, I don't know.
I need to revisit that movie, but I do remember the French lesson. I mean, excuse me, the German lesson.
Yeah.
With a record. Again, the crazy voice, the Stuhl.
Yeah, that sequence is really funny, and also when the look-alike comes down
Right.
in the trap, and he's like, "What the hell is going on?" And he's like screaming, "Schroeder!"
Right. And what an all-star cast. Where else do you get Paul Winchell and Jan Murray in a movie, right?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, and what is his
EC
name?
actors.
Yeah.
People weren't exactly clamoring for those two. Let's be honest. Though I like Paul Winchell.
But in all fairness, the person who may be watching this will be Howard Murray, son of Jan Murray, who has nothing but wonderful stories of Jerry Lewis attending Seders at the Jan Murray house. That was the greatest Passover Seder in history, with the Jan Murray Seders. Jackie Gleason, of all people, attended a Passover Seder. Jessel. And he worked on the telethon, and he said he had nothing but great stories. And Jerry gave me my first camera,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And if you watch, I watched Car 54 last night, the Jan Murray episode, and he's doing Jerry. If you know that episode, the boom, 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 he's making all those facial tics. Jan, he's doing Jerry. And he's on the first 57 TV special. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Game show host.
I've never seen the Car 54 though.
Oh, it's on YouTube. You have to watch it. He's doing Jerry.
One of the Sad Sack is never mentioned, but I feel like the ending is better. Like somewhere along the line, the middle is just kind of drags. But there's some things that are in there that are interesting. Once he gets with Pierre Lorre and they have an interaction together, it's kind of like dry, and then David Wayne and I forget the other guy's name is kind of in the what was supposed to be the Dean role. I think, I'm not sure if that movie had been planned at all for them, but you can definitely see it was supposed to be a Martin and Lewis film.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, it's funny in some parts, but then it's kind of, I would say it's probably the least out of all the golden era of.
Yes, I agree. I had forgotten about that. Like I said, it because I think of Delinquent and go to Geisha Boy. I forget about those two. Now, speaking of the Geisha Boy, the technical advisor on that was a gentleman named Snag Waris, who worked on some of the Colgate Comedy Hours. And I knew him. He was an amateur magician. I knew him from the Magic Castle. He worked on the Honeymooners shows. And he had also wrote for the Rich Brothers on one of their TV shows. And this is what he said about Jerry, about how brilliant he was. He said, if you wrote 4 jokes for Jerry, he gave you 5 back. I mean, that's how creative he was. That kind of stuff. Like, you give guys who are great performers. They whatever you give them, they're going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he spoke very highly of Jerry.
What do you think about the Disorderly Orderly? I think that one's underrated too. Like, I mean, it took me a while to appreciate that one.
Funny, the New Yorker less than a year ago did this whole little, I guess they were doing a revival of it, or it's streaming somewhere, I'm sorry. And they said about a tribute to Hitchcock, and it was really nice. I was like shocked by it because the last time I saw it, I was not, I just thought it was almost like a one-trick pony. I wasn't crazy about it.
I thought it was just very hit and miss. There's some
Yeah.
sequences are very funny, and the scenes with Jack Leonard are nothing special and this and that. Just like.
I think the pathos in that one is pretty heavy, but I like that. I'm a fan of the big pathos and the big drama, like dramedy type of film.
You liked the movie, Kayley. You liked it.
Yeah, I mean, but it took me a while. It took me like a while to appreciate it, and it's kind of like a soap opera almost of like the drama happening. And it's one of the more psychological ones that
was that the last Frank Tashlin directed film with Jerry?
Yeah,
yes.
It was, right? Yeah.
It's funny, that whole man boy idiot character, he's kind of like a little bit going towards the boy character, and in the next movie, The Family Jewel, he plays say 7 idiots, but none of them are Jerry Lewis. They're all character idiots, and I think it's a better choice. As I said, he's getting older. It's hard to, even though, the Bellboy is only 5 years earlier, I think Jerry started to mature and look older and this and that. That's why, he seemed to be getting a little bit old for some of the shticky stuff. But when he was doing the shtick as the Professor Kelp character or Bugsy and Family Jewels, it kind of worked, or in short little spurts, like when he takes over the army cadets in the van. You know what I mean? All right, he's not going to be he's an idiot only for 4 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that sequence there, like the one where the cadets is like, he's ordering everybody around, like that one I think dragged on a little bit too much.
Right.
For me, I don't know.
I like the Australian pilot.
What?
Oh,
The Australian pilot. The pilot.
Oh yes. Oh right.
That was my favorite sequence.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Reggie Van Gleason a little bit. That kind of character.
The
a little
mustache
bit.
and then the older ladies and
Also, the movie has one of my favorite lines. Again, I think isn't that Del Moore, who's the custodian of the family, right? In the beginning of the movie, is that Del Moore? In the beginning of the movie, where
oh no.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll fix this
I don't
in
know
post.
who that guy is.
Anyway, when Jerry walks in, he crushes his cigar.
Yeah, that's somebody else. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry, terrible. But the line I love is, maybe we can get it weaved. Maybe we can get it weaved.
What was that voice? There was some weird reverb voice there. When you
the voice of Jerry Lewis correcting me on that actor.
Yeah, like he also uses the same thing in the Patsy. He used that same line for when they it's like the doorknob or something.
Right.
What do you call those things? The door knocker things.
Right.
And like Hans Conried like pulls open the door, and is still like that part of the door is still attached to Jerry's hand. And like maybe we can get it weaved or something. But I think the cigarette one comes off better in that context, or the cigar, because smashed in the Family Jewels, he smashes the cigar in his face, and it's just like wet,
right,
like cigar.
I just love the little subtlety of the books when Jerry goes to take a book off the bookshelf and they all go falling off the bookshelf.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice.
That was a nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
Roll off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the movie has wonderful pathos. When he has some of those scenes with Donna Butterworth, I believe is right.
Yeah.
When he says, did you brush your teeth, ears? He's very cute.
Yeah.
And the little pantomime of giving Gary Lewis a little promo there with the diamond ring.
Yeah. It's such a random part of the movie. He's just like, I'm just gonna sit here and play my son's music, like self-promotion right there. And he like totally admits to it. He's like making a face, and here's my son. Enjoy.
And then even the movie on the airplane is a Garon production.
Yeah. Like Ann Baxter in that scene. With
right.
and everything is like sliding as they're like
Yeah.
off the table as they're flying around. And Ellen Corby is one of the older ladies there.
That's
Of
right.
course,
Yeah.
she's on the Waltons, of course. And
What-
that one, I think that the pilot, I would have to agree, is like one of the best characters.
Yeah.
the naval guy, the old Navy guy with the that one doesn't work so well.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
it's
well,
really not used that much in the movie.
I think that like the flashback is amusing. Like the
Right.
flashback where he's like in the submarine and he's doing all that stuff.
Right.
And there's like I forget, like it was like a Nazi flag, and like I think he said they were like Russian or something. I don't know, something other than what they were. And then also the kelp, but he's not kelp in that. He's Uncle Julius.
Julius, interesting. And then I love Uncle Bugsy. It's a great character. Jerry liked that character. It was kind of like his boxer, his kind of his Maxie Rosenblum character.
And then Uncle Everett is interesting because he let the extreme buddy love come out. And he's just like, but to show a clown like that, it was very interesting.
Is that the same clown makeup from Three Ring Circus for the most part, or a little variation?
It looks kind of like that.
Yeah.
Did he do his own makeup? I mean, did he did his own clown makeup, didn't he?
Right. I think he did.
Yeah, I think he did too.
And then he carried it over to Hardly Working, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They sold one of those clown outfits. I think probably the Hardly Working one at the auction.
At the auction.
I was at the auction. We'll end it on this note. So Bert and I go to the auction. We're not going to miss this. We're going to go home with something.
Mm-hmm.
And Kayley, you probably have the catalog, right?
Of which one? Oh, the children's catalog? I do not.
Okay.
But I have
Anyway.
seen the whole thing. I have seen the whole thing.
Right.
But I don't physically have it.
If you looked at the catalog, the first 75 entries are guns.
Oh, yeah.
The man had an arsenal. So we're sitting there in the front row ready to bid on Buddy Loves Whatever or Professor Kelp's this. Lot 32, a Luger. Lot 47, a shotgun. Lot 59, a Smith & Wesson Colt 45. Gee, we had to sit through 75 weapons.
Did they go for a good amount of money or
Some of them did. Some of them were because they were very good weapons, and one was monogrammed with like Super Jew on it.
Nice.
And the one thing that did very well, he had great Louis Vuitton luggage. That went for like vintage.
Yeah.
That and
It's slapstick. Before he comes on set, I remember sitting there and just watching Louis Vuitton luggage. They're all the same, exact same,
Yep.
and like 50 of them. It was like a scene from this movie.
Right.
And they come carried around, and another one, the exact same thing, and another one.
And it also in the auction were the crazy amount of watches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The man,
Watches and the jewelry.
the man spent money like crazy. Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
we're about
jewelry.
to end. We're about to end. Time
This
is
was
running out.
wonderful. This was
Sadly.
great. We could talk about Jerry forever because he
Yes.
is the funniest man. He is a total filmmaker.
Well,
He's simply
definitely-
nutty.
Yeah, we'll definitely find another topic to talk about, or even, something that we missed. We might talk about that.
No, I think it's great to revisit it. And the fact that I love the TV shows and Alan doesn't, I think it's, and maybe it's really great to show our different thoughts on him and the different dimensions. So
Yeah.
great idea.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it was
See you
great doing this.
later. It was awesome.
All right, I'm going back to the card room.